Oh, Halo 5, your reputation certainly precedes you. Halo 5 Guardians has the unfavourable position of being considered the worst entry in the Halo series by the majority of the fanbase, and for the longest time I did not have the opportunity to actually give it a go and form my own opinion, until just a couple of weeks before the game's 10th anniversary. Jumping straight to my final takeaway from this experience, I didn't think Halo 5 was a bad game, far from it actually. It's by no means perfect, and I do have a lot of problems with it, but I think, at least for me personally, there was enough to like about the game that I came away with a lot of positive thoughts, which we'll get to. Structurally, this video is going to follow my journey through the game's campaign, covering the various plot points, mission beats, and other points of interest I think are relevant to discussing one's perspective in playing this deeply controversial title. If you're still with me, I'd appreciate it if you drop a like on the video and maybe even subscribe. I'm aware that by making this video I'll be kicking the metaphorical hornet's nest that is the Halo community, but I ask that you at least hear me out on this one. I want to see civil discussions down in the comments, please. With all of that out of the way, let's get into it. But before we dive into the complicated discussion that is Halo 5 Guardians' actual campaign, it's probably worth taking some time to dive into the lead up to the game, specifically the marketing. Halo 5's marketing push was just as high budget as any other Halo title, with the usual suite of CG teaser trailers, live action shorts, and commercial collaborations with various stores, and even tie-ins with major Hollywood productions. However, in addition to this, Halo 5 Guardians incorporated a bold and later award-winning campaign known as Hunt the Truth, an audio drama featuring a stacked cast across 2 seasons with associated trailers and other elements of the marketing campaign. What this whole marketing campaign made abundantly clear was that a new Spartan by the name of Jameson Locke was hunting down the Master Chief, now considered a traitor. Both sides of this conflict would have also been assisted by 3 other Spartans. In Locke's fireteam Osiris was Edward Buck from Halo 3 ODST, Holly Tanaka from the comic Halo Escalation, and Olympia Vale from the novel Halo Hunters in the Dark. Meanwhile, Chief was joined by the beloved blue team of expanded media renown, Kelly 087, Frederick 104, and Linda 058. The core of Halo 5's marketing was this battle of 2 sides, with the audience asked to consider which side of the story they would believe: the Chief and his mysterious absence without leave, or Locke and his mission. I think right off the bat, it was kind of odd to assume that longtime fans, or anyone even familiar with the iconography of the series, would choose the new guy over the series' mascot. But seemingly in an attempt to counter this, 343 Industries made sure Locke was everywhere, in the trailer for the Master Chief collection, advertisements.
Sometimes you're the Predator.
You what?
A movie produced by Ridley Scott. Do yourself a favor, don't watch it. It was clear that in a short amount of time, Locke was to be brought to Chief's level, be his ultimate opponent. And while in the marketing this largely succeeded and made a lot of people excited to see the ultimate confrontation, in the final game we would see very little of this. Looking back on this time, many fans, myself included after the fact, believe that Locke was built up about as well as a new Halo character could be, but was let down tremendously in the final product. You see, Halo 5 went through a somewhat tumultuous development, and during this time the story would see drastic changes, notably removing almost everything that was present in the game's marketing, a decision no one at the studio wanted to make, but were left with no other choice. Little is known about this initial version of the story, with the only real pieces of tangible information being what we saw in the trailers and the additional note that the Didact would have returned from Halo 4 before this was ultimately changed and his character killed in Halo Escalation instead. All of these factors led to the final product that was Halo 5 Guardians, disappointing fans in a lot of places, and unfortunately, several other narrative decisions only worsened the problem. But I think that's enough warm up. Let's start the campaign and see where this story ended up going. Our first mission, Osiris, opens with a cutscene of Dr. Halsey entering her lab on Reach and extracting Cortana from a machine. Other than a nod to Miranda Keys from Halo 2 Anniversary, this scene doesn't have a whole lot in it and feels very disconnected from the wider narrative, but after this we really get into the main stuff. We see Fireteam Osiris preparing for their mission on the planet of Kamchatka, both a retrieval operation for Dr. Halsey and an assassination of Julam Dama. Right from Lasky's mission briefing, we run into one of Halo 5's biggest problems, the reliance on expanded media. Now, I'm a huge fan of the Halo novels. I think many of them are fantastically written with great characters and stuff I want to see referenced in mainline games. However, there's a difference between referencing this material and using it as the backbone of your entire story. To explain my point, 343 themselves released this useful chart that explores all of the material that feeds into Halo 5's story. Most relevant to this moment concerning Dr. Halsey is your required knowledge of the events of Halo 4's Spartan Ops story, then the following comic series Halo Escalation. In addition to this chart, it also helps to go into the campaign with the added context of the Kilo 5 trilogy of novels, which features Julam Dharma as a major character and explores his origin as the leader of his new covenant. But we'll leave this discussion here as the campaign begins and we get the title card and the cutscene that follows it. Now, I've seen a lot of people complain about this intro cinematic, claiming it makes the Spartans feel too much like the Avengers or something, including former Halo devs, but I personally think it works just fine here, especially since this is far from the most extreme thing we've seen other Spartans do before. To counter this point specifically, what about, I don't know, maybe Halo 2's best and most iconic cutscene? That feels far more badass than the gameplay of that game, and it's far more an extreme stunt than what's being done here in Halo 5. There's also a nice contrast with Blue Team we'll talk about when we get to the next mission in regards to this scene specifically. This game's soundtrack is particularly highlighted in this section too, composed by Kazuma Jinauchi, and incorporates far more classic Halo motifs than Halo 4 did in its score. I'll point them out when we get to them, but this track is a wholly original piece that I feel reflects Fireteam Osiris, as we see them spring into action against an all-out war between Julam Dharma's Covenant and the Promethean forces. Entering first person for the first time and after an explosive confrontation, one of the things that immediately caught my eye was just how good this game looks. The intro cutscene of course looked great, but being pre-rendered it's not quite as impressive as seeing one of this game's many phenomenal skyboxes for the first time. I want to quickly mention Locke's signature weapon throughout the campaign, the BR-85 battle rifle, and I have to say, and this might be a hot take, but I love the design of this thing, especially the green and yellow look, and the ammo count too. It's different, but it feels closer to a new modular variant of the classic BR than the Halo 4 version. We don't have much time to admire the view before we are quickly thrust into our first combat encounter. There haven't been many notable changes to the behavior of the enemies between Halo 4 and 5, with the exception of the Jackals and Grunts' newfound ability to melee the player, and the Kig-Yar now speak in broken English. The skirmish is easily cleared, and it's just after this that we are introduced to a new Promethean enemy type, the Soldier, which has inherited the Knight's ability from Halo 4 to teleport at rapid speeds, but I personally find it less annoying here since you can track where they're going. During their introduction and subsequent chase, we are introduced to Halo 5 Guardian's new movement abilities. Sprint returns from Halo's Reach and 4, a debate that I'm not going to get into here because I frankly do not care enough about it, but joining it are the ability to clamber up ledges and crash through breakable walls with the new Spartan Charge ability, a really fun addition to the combat loop, allowing you to easily cover ground and knock enemies back. You can also hover in the air with your thruster pack and perform ground pound attacks, something that I don't think is ever explicitly told to the player, but a new addition that is insanely fun to pull off. It's probably also worth discussing some of the changes made to Forerunner weapons now that we're fighting them. In Halo 4, the Promethean arsenal was made of equipment that was in almost every instance worse than the equivalent UNSC or Covenant gear, with only a handful of exceptions. Halo 5 changes this up, and while these weapons are still far from the best things you can scavenge from the battlefield, at least they're more fun to use and a bit less boring. The bolt shot has been modified, its charge-up pocket shotgun functionality removed, with its new tracking ability and burst fire replacing it. The suppressor likewise has been changed from just a worse assault rifle to a worse assault rifle with tracking this time. The scattershot is now slightly more accurate and has far more consistent reflecting rounds than in Halo 4. The light rifle now only fires one projectile at a time instead of a mix of burst and single shot from Halo 4. The binary rifle has been changed from a more traditional sniper to firing an extended beam. The incineration cannon now functions more like the Ravager from Halo Infinite than its Halo 4 version. And finally, the Promethean grenades have been upgraded and are now actually usable. Gone are the useless pulse grenades from Halo 4. A brand new addition, the Splinter turret, has also been added, a simple single shot explosive cannon. With all these sandbox additions out of the way and the opening moments of the campaign broken down, you might be wondering, how is Halo 5 to actually play? And my answer is that it feels very good. Oddly enough, this feels like a game perfect for PC, particularly with the overwhelming number of enemies with specific weak points, but likely due to the game's reception, a port was deemed a waste of significant resources. But even as somebody who's only ever played Halo on mouse and keyboard, Halo 5 Guardians feels really good to actually sit down and play on a controller. After entering a forerunner structure and scanning the environment to find the switch to the door, we get our first tease of the Kraken, a mobile Covenant fortress similar to a Scarab, only much bigger. We'll come back to this later, but unfortunately this thing is a little too big to offer anything exciting to the gameplay. It's also here that we hear Vale translating Julamdama's orders over the BattleNet before we get a bit of information about her.
How'd you learn to speak Sangheili, Vale? When I was a kid, I was stuck on a diplomatic shuttle adrift in deep space for 6 months. My options would be real bored or spend the time getting smart.
Spartan Vale, a xenoanthropologist, served as a diplomat on behalf of the UNSC, particularly in interspecies relations with Sangheili. Perhaps the most interesting part of her character is her father, briefly mentioned later in the campaign. Caleb Vale was a candidate for the Spartan 2 program, but managed to escape capture and became a slipspace drive technician and devoted pacifist. His marriage to Narina Vale, a captain in the UNSC, eventually fell apart, and this led to Vale's trip on the diplomatic shuttle that broke down, and led to her teaching herself how to speak the Sangheili language. Returning to the campaign, we see more battles between the Covenant and Prometheans, and it's here that you see me perform an assassination, a feature that I miss so badly from the series and that needs to unequivocally return as soon as possible. Please. After a clearer view of the sheer scale of the Covenant Kraken, we enter another structure and are reintroduced to the Promethean Knights. The Knights of Halo 4 have seen a redesign and dramatic changes to how you fight them. Instead of acting as the Promethean equivalent of elites like they did in the previous title, they now fill a role somewhere between an elite and a hunter. In place of an energy shield, they now have weak spots on their sides that need to be broken to expose the core on their back. It is in this process in this footage that you're seeing now that I die trying to take one out. Or, usually I would, anyway. You see, Halo 5 Guardians was developed as a game where you fight alongside a fire team of Spartans. So during development, Tim Longo of Star Wars Republic Commando fame was brought in as director to achieve this cooperative vision. While the final product ended up being nowhere near as smooth or innovative as Republic Commando, Halo 5 at least attempts to bring some of this into a Halo game, most abundantly clear with your teammates' ability to revive you, allowing for far less significant stakes across the campaign and the ability for greater challenges, something I don't really mind. After dispatching the Knights, we finally confront Julamdama and Dr. Halsey in a cool action sequence that unfortunately ends in Jul's very quick, very anticlimactic death. This is an especially odd choice when Halo 5 was the first Halo game since 2 to feature boss fights, and one against Jul and his entourage would have made for a really cool moment. This cutscene, if anything, really cements the difference between the elites of old compared to the new. This is largely an issue that exists only in cutscenes, but the elites of Halo 4 and 5 are closer to lumbering monsters than the agile aliens they're supposed to be. This is easily seen in the cutscenes of Halo 4 Spartan Ops, where the elites act in an almost polar opposite way to how they move in gameplay. But nonetheless, with Julamdama dead, we fade to black as Dr. Halsey is taken back to the Infinity and the first mission ends. Upon arriving back in Infinity, Halsey is handed over to Lasky and Palmer, who take her away after some cryptic foreshadowing from the Doctor. But Let's get to the really good stuff of this mission, finally seeing the Master Chief again. After the events of Halo 4, Chief reunited with Blue Team and was sent by Lord Hood to investigate the disappearance of Black Team on Installation 03, also known as Gamma Halo. After arriving, it doesn't take long before they quickly discover the bodies of Black Team and are attacked by Promethean Knights. The team then enters the site from which the Composer was taken prior to the events of Halo 4, the Composer's Abyss, where the victims of composition are stored. After going through a subspace portal, Blue Team find themselves confronted by the Didact in the Composer's Forge, having survived the battle with Chief and Cortana on the Mantle's approach. The Forge contains 6 Composers, one of which the Didact plans to take back to Gamma Halo to wipe out humanity. The Monitor of Composer's Forge, 859 Static Carolon, assists the Spartans in holding back the Promethean forces as they make their way back to Gamma Halo, where the Didact fights Blue Team, getting stabbed in the eye by Chief, but not before he cracks the Spartan's visor and is quickly teleported to the control room of the Halo by Static Carolon to protect Blue Team. The Master Chief, now with the activation index dropped by the Didact, is also taken to the control room where he uses the index to give control of the installation to the Monitor of the Composer's Forge. The section of the ring holding the control room is separated from the wider installation, with Chief escaping, but the Didact unable to stop the fragment from colliding with the Composer's Forge. The combined power of 5 Composers nullifying his mutations and sending him to the corners of the domain. Following this mission, Blue Team would embark on numerous more, with Chief receiving his new Mark 6 Gen 3 set of Mjolnir. The next mission of major significance would come on the planet of Baiko, and tie in with the Hunt for Truth campaign. Blue Team would discover that an extremist group known as Sapien Sunrise was planning an attack against a peace conference between UEG and Sangheili representatives. Master Chief would enter and immediately kill the UEG ambassador Richard Sekibo's bodyguard, an undercover member of the extremist organization. During the ensuing firefight, 18 human delegates were killed, and during Chief's attempt to escort the Sangheili and Sekibo to safety, Sekibo was killed before they could evacuate with the rest of Blue Team. Following this, the UEG and Baiko government would spin the narrative to have it appear that the Master Chief had killed Sekibo. The media started referring to Chief as the fallen Spartan. Soon, Benjamin Gerard, the main focus of the Hunt for Truth campaign, prepared to expose the UEG and those involved in the Spartan 2 program. It wasn't long, however, before the UEG and Baiko governments radically reversed their claims, admitting the involvement of Sapien Sunrise in the attack and completely discrediting Gerard, and creating a sort of meta-narrative as for why the canonical marketing campaign did not reflect the direction of the game and wider series. With the backstory out of the way, we join Blue Team as they prepare for their new mission: free the captured Oni research vessel Argent Moon. Argent Moon was an important location in Halo Last Light and later Retribution, being the site in which a malicious Forerunner AI by the name of Intrepid Eye was contained, as well as being the place in which Halo's first canonical freeway occurred. That is not a joke. I don't like these books very much. More relevant to Halo 5, however, is the release of an infection being developed under Oni called Project Sleeping Star. We'll come back to this later, but for now, let's get back to the campaign. It's really good to see Blue Team together again. All looking great, except Linda. I'm sorry, that helmet, it's not that good. This is made even better with the soft, almost contemplative version of 117 playing. Chief's theme from Halo 4 now recontextualizes the theme of Blue Team. Linda opens the Pelican's door and Blue Team fly out in perfect synchronization, accompanied by a heroic brass rendition of the Halo theme. This scene is one I mentioned earlier that contrasts Fighting Osiris' entrance, who are all relatively spread out across the chaos of Kamchatka, in comparison to Blue Team flying through the void in formation. After breaking through a window of the ship, I love the way Blue Team stares down the elites as they slide backwards. Something I've picked up with this campaign is that if a moment is important between Fighting Osiris, they'll either have their helmets off or they'll be communicating more openly. But with Blue Team, it's always just the little details like this, and it's something that's going to keep coming up with little cues and bits of body language that really sell this team as more experienced. Jumping into the Chief's helmet, we get a good look around this section of the ship as Blue Team discuss the importance of the site.
What do we know about Argent Moon?
Oni research station. Went dark 19 months ago. Last week, Kikyar scavengers found it and sold the find to Julem Dama's people.
We clear the Covenant and return this station to Oni.
I want to quickly draw attention to the Halo 5 assault rifle here. The MA5D in this game is one of my favourite designs, not just from this game, but one of my favourite versions of the weapon from a Halo game to date. Again, similarly to the battle rifle from earlier, I really like the different ammo count here. The teal colour really makes it stand out against the darker environments of this mission. As we move through the Argent Moon, we really get a good sense of just how big the ship is. The game even takes a beat to show a prototype stealth ship being built inside of it. It isn't much longer, however, before we see the effects of Project Sleeping Star, and the unease it builds is something that we haven't really seen in a Halo game since the last time we saw the Flood. This idea of building tension is something we'll come back to later in the level. After dispatching some Covenant, we reach the data center, and one of my favourite tracks from this game begins to play. Fred realizes that no one from Oni made it off the ship alive thanks to the presence of prowlers still docked in the hangar bay. The song Argent Moon, I think, perfectly suits the atmosphere this level is trying to build. A place where the disaster has already occurred, countless have been killed, and Blue Team is sent in to do nothing but pick up the pieces. After dropping into a combat encounter, and while on the topic of music, we have another interesting piece to talk about titled Scavengers. This track stands out for its reintroduction of the Covenant leitmotif that was last seen in any significant capacity in Halo 3. This song combines this with another heroic interpretation of the Blue Team motif as we spring into action, and the combination of the tracks makes for a fun accompanying score. After this, we're introduced to one of the new weapons Halo 5 added to the sandbox, the MLRS-1 Hydra, a weapon so boring I'm surprised it made it into more than one game. The gun locks onto a single target at a time and fires a small, albeit somewhat powerful missile. I don't have any strong feelings on this weapon. I think the Infinite version is way better, but that's only thanks to the buff it got recently to the reload speed. This version is just kind of eh. And speaking of just kind of eh, the Halo 5 DMR, while feeling arguably the best the weapon ever has, just looks wrong without the ammo count. Other than that, it's just the Halo 4 DMR, my favourite version by the way, but blue instead of green. Once we've cleared out this large room, we get a very short but effective scene introducing the hunters and just how strong they are, but after Chief falls, he awakes in some kind of rocky dream sequence where he receives a vision from Cortana. Now, if this really was some kind of dream sequence, I wouldn't mind this at all. The atmosphere, like with the rest of the level, is off the charts and the lighting looks phenomenal, but the fact that this seems to be Cortana directly reaching out to Chief with no explanation seems a bit strange to me. To make matters worse, Cortana's death in Halo 4 was done so well, as we all know, and we'll talk more about this later when it's relevant to the story, but the reveal that she's alive is so anticlimactic. It feels like her revival is something akin to yet another event from the expanded media tied in with this game's story, only this time there isn't a wider explanation. It's just already happened with no prior build-up, and we're left to catch up with the Chief, likely by design, but that doesn't mean the design's good. After she says something ominous about the planet Meridian, we get our first tease of the Guardian before Chief is snapped out of his vision.
Chief, what's wrong?
She's on Meridian.
Who?
Cortana.
Now deep in the deteriorating depths of Argent Moon, Blue Team navigates dark corridors filled with grunts with plasma grenades in a great pseudo-horror scenario reminiscent of that similar moment at the start of New Alexandria in Halo Reach. It's actually really refreshing to see an environment this dark in a more modern Halo game. The original trilogy and ODST were arguably the last games to do it before it was phased out in favour of brighter environments in Halo 4. After getting jump scared by some camo elites, we move further down the corridor and we encounter the hunters again and conveniently encounter Xbox cloud gaming issues at the same time. Thanks Microsoft, I love gaming and AI and layoffs. The SMG returns for the first time since Halo 3, and while I like the new look and animations, I think it's a pretty weak addition to the sandbox. I'm glad it's here and wish it made a permanent comeback, but I think a slight buff to accuracy or magazine size would have been nice. We see a number of Covenant ships drop out of slipspace outside Argent Moon, the effects of which look really nice. I'm glad the mix of purple and green from Halo 4 has been ditched, because that was not a nice combination to look at. Entering the Hunter's arena, we see the Legolo worms slowly slithering down the glass as they fill the armor of one of the Hunters, and the fight begins. Hunters in Halo 5 are crazy. I wouldn't go as far as to say they're overtuned, but they have certainly been made more powerful than ever before. They have their usual arm-mounted fuel rod gun arm, but can switch firing modes to a rapid fire that can absolutely melt through practically anything in a matter of seconds. When you finally manage to take one down, the second will go berserk and rush you, somehow even faster than their Halo 4 counterparts. These Guardians, along with the version in Infinite's campaign, are probably the two hardest Hunters to take out from behind like intended. The best strategy I found for the Hunters in this game is just to use the railgun, my beloved, which does a huge amount of damage. These Hunters as well might actually be the best sounding in the series, making their usual grunts but with a gurgle and almost electronic sound to some of them, which really sells the gross factor of fighting a bunch of worms. Not much of note happens in the mission following the defeat of the Hunters, but we do get one last great part, this game's first vehicle section. Flying around in space in a Banshee feels really good, helped by the Banshee in Halo 5 just being really fun to use. I can't say I think the design is perfect and the environment overall is pretty small, but I do like that the Banshee has energy shields now. It makes the combat feel a lot better since they were always so fragile. The Trials, the song from the opening cutscene, plays again here in full, another heroic moment featuring Blue Team scored by the only song that feels appropriate for something like this. My only wish is that we got to fly the Banshees outside the ship in a Warthog Run-like sequence, escaping the scuttled ship to start the game off with a real bang. After one final firefight, Blue Team preps for the launch of an Oni Prowler as Chief contacts Infinity about pursuing Cortana, but is denied.
Sierra 117 to Infinity. Argent Moon scuttled. I've reassigned Blue Team. Destination Meridian. Potential contact from Cortana.
Negative 117. Another team is already being prepped to deal with her.
What the hell?
You're to return to Infinity immediately.
Negative Infinity. I don't like it.
This is an odd decision, to say the least, and I don't think it's ever explained why Infinity wouldn't put the Master Chief, the most experienced Spartan the UNSC has, on a case involving Cortana, one of his most trusted companions. It's odd, and worse, feels like a way to force conflict. A very brief conflict, mind you, between Fireteam Osiris and Blue Team. Chief initially plans to go on his mission alone, but Blue Team knows him too well and tags along. Fred even chimes in.
They won't court-martial all of us, right?
Yes. Yes, they can, Fred. The Prowler escapes the Argent Moon as it goes up in flames before engaging active camo and disappearing, ending 1/3 of Blue Team's screen time in this game. Yes, you heard that right. 1/3. Despite being originally intended to be a story about the Master Chief and Spartan Locke, Halo 5 Guardians ends up actually being a story about Spartan Locke, with small nuggets of Master Chief periodically sprinkled throughout, which is a real shame. The third mission, Glassed, begins with Dr. Halsey revealing that Cortana is now a danger with access to the Forerunner domain, and Roland, the UNSC Infinity's AI, appears just as confused as I'm sure many of us were playing this for the first time. The domain, as the campaign somewhat elaborates later, is a, quote, esoteric quantum information repository that was once used by the Forerunners to contain vast amounts of knowledge. Halsey says that Master Chief cannot speak to Cortana, but doesn't really give an explanation as to why. I suppose the thought process might be that he'll join her in whatever she's planning, but I think it's pretty clear, especially to Halsey of all people, where Chief's loyalties lie in the long term, with humanity, like was the case before Cortana, and like it will after. Hell, Chief himself agrees with this later in the campaign.
Will you stand in defense of your own species?
Cortana knows the answer already.
We then join Buck and Locke discussing their next target, the Master Chief, who they've been selected to hunt down. We get a great little moment where Buck reflects on his time since becoming a Spartan. Edward Buck's journey after the events of Halo 3 ODST involves some key events not mentioned in the game, so we may as well explore that here. After the end of the Human Covenant War in 2553, while on shore leave with Veronica Dare on Sundown, Buck was approached by June A266, former Noble Team marksman, who offered him the opportunity to join the Spartan 4 program in its infancy at the time. Buck declined, the first person to do so, fearing he would have to leave behind his team and Dare. Arguably the most significant event to occur in the next couple of years was a mission in 2554 to Draco 3, his homeworld, before it was partially glassed in 2545. Buck and the rest of Alpha 9 were to take out a group of insurgents in the remains of the New Albany Capitol building. After a short confrontation, the rookie was captured and held at gunpoint by the leader of the United Rebel Front on Draco 3, Captain Ingridson. Spartan Sarah Palmer, a former ODST sent to secure the planet as well, contacted Buck and offered her assistance, but fearing the rookie's life, Buck turned her down. After a tense conversation, Buck ordered his squad to attack. The rookie was executed and fell from the balcony as Dutch killed Ingridson. Dutch would retire after this battle with his wife Gretchen, a former ODST. After the rookie's funeral, Buck was approached again by June, who offered him and the rest of Alpha 9 the opportunity for augmentation and enlistment in the Spartan 4 program. After accepting, the next most significant event to occur in Buck's timeline was the mission to Talitsa in 2555, their goal being to recover the captured Huragok quick to adjust, who you might remember from Halo 3 ODST, and Sadie Andisha, his handler, from the same game. It was during this mission that Mickey betrayed Buck and Romeo, having sided with the United Rebel Front. A fight broke out, ending in Mickey's defeat and arrest, and the temporary breakup of Alpha 9. After this, Buck was assigned to fight Team Osiris, where we now see him and Locke talking. Locke uses this opportunity to show how they'll bring Blue Team in.
The hell?
Armor restraint.
A good strategy, but Buck still has some reservations about the whole thing.
Every soldier, when they hear about this, they're gonna hate us. You know that, right?
This line was really ahead of its time, wasn't it? Locke responds by delivering a genuinely great piece of dialogue, hinting at his relationship to the Spartan 4 program.
You're not the only one here because of him.
Oddly enough, Locke, despite being the character you play as for almost the entire campaign, is on par with Tanaka as being the Spartan with the least amount of background information. You could argue this was due to his history with Oni, but with only the Hunt for Truth trailers and Halo Nightfall, Locke's nowhere near as important to the series as many hoped he would be. It feels strange for a comment with this much weight behind it to not have any elaboration, but given the impact that the Chief had on the fate of humanity during the Human Covenant War, the player can probably infer what Locke means. Team Osiris now finds themselves on Meridian's space elevator heading down towards the planet. Meridian was attacked by the Covenant in 2548, but fighting continued until 2551 when it was finally glassed. Now resettled by the Liang Dortmund Corporation, Meridian has become an independent world free from the UEG. Once again, the skyboxes are phenomenal, but it's not long before it's interrupted by a Forerunner attack on the colony. We're contacted by Governor Sloan, who is not thrilled by the presence of the UNSC, but quickly drops out of contact. Our first firefight is not far from here, just outside a large door amongst a group of buildings. After activating some automated turrets to help clear out the enemies, we gain Sloan's wary trust. Our first Warthog section, in a special Liang Dortmund variant of the vehicle, begins here. The yellow design looks really cool and is applied to all military hardware given to the corporation. I think it also would have been really cool, especially with Halo 5's weapon skin system, if we saw this also applied to certain weapons, but I suppose you can't have everything. This section is pretty short, but fun enough, especially since Halo 5's Warthog controls pretty well. We also see in this section the ability of Promethean soldiers to drive any vehicle, making them and the Flood in Halo 2 the only enemies capable of driving human vehicles. Speaking of vehicles, it's in this level that we get our first good look at the Forerunner Phaeton, a fairly strong small ship that we'll get around to talking about when we get to pilot it. As if the number of vehicles in this level couldn't get any higher, we commandeer a modified M820 Scorpion tank. The tank is insanely effective at taking out the Prometheans, able to one-shot knights if shots are placed correctly. Also, being a tank, it's just awesome in general to drive around. Halo hasn't really had a bad tank since Halo 2. We don't talk about the combat evolved Scorpion. After this encounter, the path is clear and Sloan gives us access to the colony's central base. Accepting Sloan's invitation, Team Osiris advances to Meridian Station, where we finally meet the Governor, an obviously deteriorating AI. This mission marks the first of 3 weapons down levels, which I think are supposed to give the player the opportunity to explore certain environments and hear character interactions, but ultimately just amount to walking between objective markers. I think resources would have been much better spent on extending cutscenes to free up the mission lineup for more blue team stuff, but that's just my thoughts. The hunt for information is basically over before it begins, so we hop on a Pelican and are dropped off at a new site where we fight more Prometheans and make our way to blue team's Prowler. After taking out some knights, we scan the ship's log and discover blue team's plan to go under the surface of the planet. Inside the Prowler, we find the first of what I assume to be a number of weapons from Halo 5's multiplayer Warzone mode. This one in particular is Linda's Nornfang, a modified sniper rifle from the SRS-99 series that features increased damage and explosive rounds. However, in the campaign, it lacks all of these features, just being a reskinned regular sniper, unfortunately. Some weapons in future levels of the campaign, however, do retain their traits, and we'll get to one in particular when the time is right. After dealing with a wall of binary rifle fire from a counter-sniping position, we begin our journey underground towards the recently excavated Forerunner site. It's in this excavation site that we find one of my favourite Halo weapons of all time, and one that I think should return at some stage, the M739 SAW. Before Halo 4, Halo had never had an LMG adjacent weapon, but when it did, oh boy was it fun to use. Especially here in Halo 5 against Prometheans with their particle effect, really selling the idea that this thing is absolutely tearing them to shreds. Taking a Forerunner elevated down, the glow of the lava gives this super ominous impression, particularly with the revelation that Sloan may have allowed blue team passage, but intentionally caused blockages for Fireteam Osiris. A cutscene begins, Locke and the group walking towards a mysterious structure when a voice calls out.
She calls the Guardians to serve her.
What was that?
The voice reveals itself after a very dramatic entrance.
Are you the Guardian?
I am Warden Eternal. I stand in service to Cortana.
Cortana?
The other humans are approved for passage. Regretfully, you are not.
That sounds like a threat.
Vacate his shelter now.
And so begins Halo 5's first boss fight. The Warden Eternal is probably one of the most hated parts of Halo 5, being the game's only boss repeated 6 times throughout the game's levels, and never changing in any way beyond the number you have to fight. Now, my take on the Warden, I don't really mind. He certainly isn't the most fun enemy to fight in the world, but I was playing on normal difficulty and I personally found him to be of little challenge. I've heard horror stories of fights against him on anything heroic or higher, but being easier to take out than a Promethean knight on anything else means that I mostly didn't even have the time to hate the fight. After you land the final blow, the effect when you actually kill the Warden Eternal is really cool, with him being sucked piece by piece into a mini black hole before it disappears entirely. But it isn't long before the next of one of Halo 5's worst moments shows itself. In the shadow of a titular Guardian, Osiris begins to traverse a series of teleporters, but it's not long before Vale spots Blue Team doing likewise. The chase begins with Locke separated from Osiris and catching up with Blue Team by himself.
Blue team! Stay where you are. "117, stand down."
Sir, you are absent without leave. This is your one chance to come home peacefully.
And then, the moment the game's entire pre-release cycle was leading up to, the confrontation.
I have a job to do.
Cortana's our concern now, sir.
Like hell she is.
Time out. Seriously? That's the fight? It looks fine, I guess. Like, the shots are nice, the lighting is good, but the movements and the actual hits, they feel so weak. The sound design does sort of help out here, making them feel a bit stronger, but in other parts it just looks comical. I get in some way these two are probably holding back, but come on. It gets worse though. When Locke pulls out the armor restraint for the whole world to see, the fight basically devolves into two kids in the playground fighting over a toy. Chief wins this battle, teleporting away as the Guardian begins to activate. Oh, and the rest of Osiris? They were just floating a couple meters away this whole time. I get it might have been too far to jump over and help, but you all have weapons, and Chief and Locke have energy shields. You're not going to kill them by throwing in some suppressive fire to try and distract the Chief and catch him. At this point too, the fight is arguably lost from the start, since 3 members of Blue Team have already made it through. I get the Chief is, John Halo, the guy, if you will, but he's nothing compared to the fastest Spartan ever recorded, one of the UNSC's best tactical minds, and literally the greatest sniper to ever live. Freeing Locke from his restraints, Osiris sprints towards the teleporter Blue Team arrived through in a sequence infinitely more exciting than the scuffle that just took place. With the Guardian under the Meridian colony activating and Osiris now back on the planet's surface, the effects of the ancient Forerunner machine are immediately apparent as it quickly dominates the skies of Meridian. This 6th mission of the campaign is the best of the 4 on Meridian, beginning with a frantic warthog run towards the space elevator. It's pretty cool going back through the maps where we were not too long ago, now in chaos thanks to the Guardian. Quickly arriving back at the base of the space elevator, we fight through the Forerunner forces before the doors are open. It's here that Sloan is questioned about Cortana's involvement with the Guardians, and he provides some important information.
When did Cortana tell you about the Guardian?
You're good. She gave me fair warning, true enough. I was allowed to help my people survive. A change is gonna come. For all of us, human and created alike. She's bringing a new dawn, and I intend to be part of it.
After that ominous twist, we regroup on board the space elevator, and things go fairly smoothly beyond some small interruptions from Promethean Knights. But then the Guardian grinds everything to a halt, disabling the elevator and causing it to plummet down some distance before being stopped by the e-brake, leaving Fireteam Osiris to climb the exterior stairs towards their Pelican. This sequence is overall pretty great, especially when we're given a whole bunch of explosive toys to mess around with by taking out a group of Phaetons. It's just after this that the Guardian begins to ramp up the shockwaves it emits. The whole structure begins to crumble around us as the Pelican gets closer. The Pelican begins sliding off the elevator and quickly takes off as Locke jumps to meet it. My only complaint with this sequence is I wish we got to actually see the slipspace rupture fully destabilize the space elevator like in Halo 2, but unfortunately we fade to black before any large-scale destruction occurs from its collapse. The next mission opens back on Infinity, where Locke confirms to Halsey that Cortana has begun activating Guardians. Halsey mentions there is still a dormant Guardian on the elite's homeworld of Sanghelios under the pre-Covenant religious site of Sanion. Osiris needs to reach the Guardian there to get wherever Blue Team went, so Lasky begins making arrangements. Finally returning to Blue Team's boots once more, we arrive on the Forerunner world Genesis. Approaching a Forerunner terminal, the notes of Ollie Ollie Oxenfree sound out, an all-clear code used by the Spartan 2s exclusively, with knowledge of its existence only extending to Dr. Halsey and Cortana. We get another amazing shot of the scenery of this planet as one of my favourite tracks in the game begins to play. The song doesn't have a name, as far as I know, just being included in the larger Osiris Suite Act 4, but the song in my mind captures everything I think a Halo song should. As Blue Team walks through this unnatural world, the unsettling ambience gives way to an almost mournful choir that seems to be a new interpretation of Atonement from Halo 4, mixed with the iconic Halo theme. This was one of those moments in a game where I just had to stop for a second and take everything in around me. The track's haunting nature is also somewhat thematic as Blue Team discusses the extent to which Cortana was aware of the destruction she's causing.
Chief, back on Meridian, there was a lot of destruction. There were civilians.
I know.
She may not have known what would happen. And if she did?
We'll learn what's going on once we find her.
This place is incredible.
Gives me the creeps.
Bio readings are unlike anything we've previously recorded. There's a formalness and precision to it all. It seems artificial, but still organic.
It isn't long before the spell is broken by an encounter with a small group of Covenant, which we later learn were accidentally brought through a Guardian slipspace portal when it jumped. During the series of battles leading up to the second Forerunner building, I pick up and use a Type 57B carbine, a new design for the classic weapon that replaces the green in its color scheme with blue, and I've gotta say, I really like this look. I also like how when you fire it, the top of the magazine that displays the ammo changes color. It's a really nice touch. After taking an underground passage, Blue Team comes to a light bridge with a disturbing scene beyond. I really love the unsettling atmosphere this scene brings, but it's quickly cut short by the arrival of...
Identify yourself.
I am the Warden Eternal. I stand in defense of Cortana.
She called me to her.
And you came scampering. She knows your forgotten name. Who you were before you were 117?
Initially, this line really bugged me because I thought the Warden was referring to John, a name that is known by a lot of people in the Halo universe, but as I was writing this script, I realized that he was actually probably referring to John's last name, which was only known by very, very few people, including Dr. Halsey, of whom Cortana is a clone of, and thus would also know. After the Warden disappears, Blue Team moves up into a series of caverns, and after taking out a bunch of Prometheans, we begin our second fight against the Warden, only this time he is much more help than last time. After this encounter, which is over very quickly by the way, we finally hear from Cortana after all this time.
Chief, hello?
Cortana.
John, you made it. Oh my... I can't believe you're here.
Where are we?
You're on a Forerunner world. Designation, Genesis. Enough standing around. Let me get the bridge for you. The Warden will be back soon.
Cortana explains how entering the domain cured her rampancy, the death of AIs thanks to the creation of endless feedback loops in their memories. Cortana reveals with the ability of long-term planning now in her hands, AIs can assume the Forerunner's mantle of responsibility, the protection of all life in the galaxy under interstellar stewardship. Cortana elaborates,
We can focus on poverty, hunger, illness. But Warden believes some will resist our help. And he's afraid you're one of them.
Sounds great. I don't get why anyone's expecting resistance.
Didact made it clear the mantle of responsibility was an Imperial piece. Step out of line and suffer.
It won't be like that, John. I'll explain it better once we're together.
The next section is a fairly straightforward vehicle section where we get to fly some Forerunner Phaetons. The Phaeton itself controls very similarly to a Wasp from Halo 5 and Infinite, with a hard light machine gun and rockets you can switch between. The biggest difference between the two though is probably the ability of the Phaeton to dash away from projectiles. The song that plays during this section is called Crypt and begins as a more generic action piece until around the halfway point where the Blue Team motif appears again, really making this piece feel significant. I only wish this part was tied to a cooler moment, or at least one of more significance, because you're just kind of flying this ugly Forerunner ship around brown and grey caves while fighting almost exclusively stationary turrets. It means the impactful song just feels a little off. As we approach the now activated central Forerunner structure, the mission very abruptly ends. It feels like there was supposed to be something else here, but whatever the case, we move on to the next set of missions, which are thankfully some of my favourites. Rejoining Fireteam Osiris on Infinity, Vale questions Locke's involvement in a series of files suggesting the termination of Felvedam prior to his assignment of the Arbiter title and his siding with humanity. These can be found in the UNSC terminals in Halo 2 Anniversary, detailing Fel's history during the Human Covenant War. It's here that we see Fireteam Osiris escorted to Sanghelios by the Swords of Sanghelios, the Arbiter's faction. It's probably worth going into the messy history of this conflict the Arbiter is currently engaged in, since it's not necessarily common knowledge. knowledge. Having been literally bred to be the most effective fighting force for the Sanshayum during their centuries in the Covenant, once the Empire fell and the elites were forced to return to their homeworld, it wasn't long before the planet fell into social, political, military, and religious turmoil. With no official form of government now that the prophets were gone, the Sangheili were forced back to their traditional feudal states. From this came the rise of numerous factions, including those that maintained the religious fervor of the Covenant, such as the Servants of the Abiding Truth and Julam Dharma's Covenant, and then there was the Swords of Sanghelios, who, despite still maintaining the superiority intrinsic to Sangheili thinking, are more accepting of interspecies cooperation. In regards to the Arbiter himself, following the end of the Human Covenant War, he was mostly concerned with attempts to unify his people to varying degrees of success. Arriving on the surface of the planet, I was immediately struck by the landscape, consisting of orange rocky crevices and ancient Sangheili temples. This game really does a good job at distinguishing its distinct environments, and finally seeing Sanghelios after all this time really was something, especially as a huge fan of the Kilo 5 trilogy, in which the Civil War plays a major role. The verticality of these environments really makes combat a lot of fun, particularly when landing the super satisfying ground pound attack. It's also clear in this section too, with a bunch of jackal snipers waiting around. After taking them out, I pick up a Type 56D Needler, which, while certainly looking the part, even the SmartLink target, unfortunately is just not it in the audio department in this game. This level also heralds the return of the Spirit dropship, which was absent from Halo 4 but makes its return here with a cool new design. Entering a circular chamber, the Swords of Sanghelios ship mistress Maki Chava drops off some very welcome gifts, a couple of Mantis-powered exoskeletons. The Mantis was one of the coolest parts of Halo 4, hands down, but was very restricted in the service corridors of the UNSC Infinity. Now that we have a lot more space to work with, the Mantis is really able to shine here in a way that it just couldn't before. Unfortunately, I far prefer how the Mantis in Halo 4 functions, particularly the rockets in the left arm. I don't know why they removed the ability to fire them one at a time in Halo 5, but it just means it has to waste time constantly reloading whenever I want to take out an enemy or two at once. But onto some more positive things, the song that plays during this section is deceptively named Walk Softly, which remixes the Mantis theme from Halo 4 by adding the Swords of Sanghelios motif into it. This is followed by a second absolute banger, which can be found in Osiris Suite Act 3, which I love. This song to me reflects the instability of the Sangheili Civil War, reflecting the conflict of a warrior race with no common enemy left to fight, and the infighting that ensues as a result. This whole arc of the campaign on Sanghelios contains some of the game's best music, and I think if there's one thing that's underrated about this game as a whole, it has to be the soundtrack. Getting out of the Mantis to enter a large Sangheili temple, we fight our way to the top where we finally see the Arbiter in combat. He's more than capable of defending himself, however, so it's not long before we're all on board a Phantom and are heading for a Swords of Sanghelios camp. The opening cutscene of this game's second Weapons Down mission is one of my favorites, partially due to the beautiful skybox, but mostly due to just hearing the Arbiter again.
Oni, out of the shadows. The spies announce themselves now, Agent Locke.
I'm a Spartan now, sir.
I know who you are. You were an agent when you volunteered to execute me.
Also, the glow up is crazy, like, my guy, we see the fit. The track that plays during this scene is called Honor's Song, and I just find it so funny that this track, along with many others associated with Sanghelios, include woodwind instruments, when there is no way you can convince me that you can make a sound this good with a set of those. Cortana interrupts their interaction by reaching out to every device in the Swords of Sanghelios camp, learning the position of the Guardian under Sanion. Weapons now lowered, we speak with Dr. Halsey, who informs us of a Constructor, a Forerunner tool that can be used to gain access to the Guardian. With the coordinates for one located, Osiris gets on a Pelican and heads to the objective. Palmer informs the team that a Covenant have a Kraken between them and the Constructor, which will be dealt with by Sangheli air support. Advancing on foot for now, we are met with the song Covenant Prayers, an almost diegetic track that echoes through the ancient temple grounds. Once out in the open, the Kraken's sheer size is visible, completely dwarfing the Arbutus Banshees. We participate in a new vehicle section, this time in Covenant Ghosts. With the Kraken dominating the landscape beyond the cliff edge, we are forced to move quickly, taking out groups of grunts armed to the teeth with plasma grenades. With tight corridors demanding traversal on foot, we're faced with a huge temple ground full of enemies, including a wraith that'll cause a lot of problems unless taken out. Inside the temple, we find a large spacious chamber that contains the game's only puzzle, and by puzzle I mean an interactable statue that can be easily seen and is pointed out to you after a few seconds. The arrival of Prometheans to the scene gives us the opportunity to pilot another Phaeton, with which we attack the Kraken, or just the turrets on it, to clear a landing space to infiltrate. Unfortunately, while the Kraken has all the spectacle of the Scarab, it lacks any of the interactivity or challenge, and is closer to the fight against the Lich from Halo 4. Destroying the generator of the craft, we now make our escape, climbing into the Banshee bay of the ship before it falls into the smog below, and we don't even see it explode. A huge disappointment, personally, but the elite's cheering kind of makes up for it because it just sounds really funny. All that's left is to retrieve the Constructor, which is largely no trouble until some Prometheans show up, but it's not long before we manage to escape with it in our possession, giving the Arbiter the all-clear to begin preparations for the battle against Sanion. Arriving back at the base camp, we bear witness to an incredible skybox filled with the Arbiter's fleet readying for the coming battle. We give the Constructor to Halsey and it takes off immediately towards the Guardian's position. The Arbiter calls his warriors to him with his awesome new energy sword, and with little further delay we're on board a Lich and hurtling towards Sanion. Buck asks Tanaka to say a word or two, and although her line is regularly clowned on in the community, I don't mind it a whole lot, seeing as Buck follows it up with one of his typical responses, saving the scene in my opinion, right as we enter the battle.
And may Buck buy the first round when we get back.
We get through this, I'll buy the whole damn bar.
Quick tangent about Tanaka. As I mentioned earlier, she and Locke have the least amount of material surrounding them. Tanaka only appears in the Halo Escalation comic series during the events that were supposed to make up the second season of Spartan Ops before it was cancelled. Speaking of Spartan Ops, another reason for Tanaka's lack of significance in this game could probably be attributed to the initial plans of the makeup of Fireteam Osiris. Initially, Tanaka's spot was filled by Spartan Gabriel Thorne, but due to scheduling conflicts with the voice actor, the character had to be switched out, with Tanaka being selected instead. Back to the mission now. Landing on one of the structures, we fight alongside the Arbiter and the other members of the Swords of Sanghelios for only a short time, which is pretty unfortunate. Our mission is to take out anti-aircraft turrets across the city to make our way to the Guardian. Not an especially difficult objective. These levels are really fun to play around though, with a bit of verticality like the rest of Sanghelios, and a good mix of large open spaces with lots of cover and interior sections. Overall, the layout of Sanion makes for a really compelling level, giving lots of Camino vibes with the buildings extending above the water. With the last of the turrets destroyed, we take an elevator down to the Undercity and get a nice little interaction with the Arbiter.
We're heading to the Undercity. I want to warn you, before the Guardian jumps to slip space, it sets up a series of concussive blasts. If you move your ships out of the way in time, the Covenant will take the brunt of it.
Victory and honor do not grow from timid seeds, Spartan Locke. Your harvest shall be grand. When you see the Chief again, tell him I send my greetings.
Traversing the Undercity is far more challenging than the rest of Sanion, with it being much easier to get distracted and fall off the ledges into the ocean below the city, but thankfully the route is fairly straightforward. It's during this firefight that I kill a Sangheli with a new weapon that I don't have footage of in the campaign. The Plasma Caster is a Halo 5 original and has remained as such. It's a relatively simple weapon, a Covenant grenade launcher that can be charged up for a more destructive effect. It's a kinda cool addition to the sandbox, but it doesn't really do a whole lot that makes for its absence in Infinite feel like a missed opportunity. After taking out some hunters, we head back up to the surface of Sanion. As we continue, the Guardian begins to rise out of the water, shockwaves shattering the ground all around us in a really cool sequence that I think sells the power of these things in an even better way than on Meridian. Joining the Arbiter, we fight through some newly arrived Promethean forces until the Warden Eternal shows up again. Following his defeat, and with little time now remaining, Palmer picks us up in a Pelican, which takes some damage during the flight, but still manages to stay on course. Fireteam Osiris drops onto the Guardian as it lets out an EMP, disabling the Pelican and all nearby ships before the Guardian disappears with Osiris on it as the Arbiter celebrates their victory over the last of Julim Dama's forces.
Hunt them to the last. The day we extinguish the Covenant's light.
Returning to the surface of Genesis, this time in the boots of fighting Osiris, we get a surprise when the Guardian drops out of slipspace. Okay, this right here, one of the game's best moments. Seriously, whoever at 343 decided to have a section where you run down the spine of a Guardian while the whole planet is sprawling out beneath you needs a raise. Assuming they haven't been laid off, which is extremely likely. After being knocked off of a Guardian and landing safely on the surface of the planet, we managed to get in contact with the Chief.
Chief, Dr. Halsey sent us. We're here to help you.
How the hell are you here?
Long story, sir. Cortana has been activating Forerunner.
Where? We're at the gateway.
It's kind of odd to hear Chief sound annoyed. He's usually a very collected person, but we don't have much time to talk before Cortana interrupts us and we come across an unusual ally.
It's you. The same as Meridian. As St. Helios. More humans. You do get around.
Cortana?
So this is the right place.
Hello.
That's a monitor.
I am 031 Exuberant Witness, monitor of the Genesis installation. Welcome. Have you also come to stop Cortana from cleaning the mantle?
Exuberant Witness guides us to a small platform where she summons a scorpion brought through a Guardian slipspace portal, and another Osiris tank section begins. This one much more fun than the last thanks to the number and variety of enemies. It's during this section of the mission that we discover that the Guardians were a tool used by the Forerunners to police the galaxy during their reign 100,000 years ago. Also in this tank section is another fight against the Warden Eternal, which is by far the easiest, taking a whopping 3 shots to take out. After this we find a crashed Pelican outside the gateway, which contains my favourite weapon of the whole campaign, the Answer. A unique variant of the saw with explosive rounds, an absolute beast of a weapon that I use here to take out not 1, but 2 Wardens in the next encounter. With all that fighting out of the way, this mission comes to an end very quickly, with Osiris confronting Blue Team again.
Chief, please, wait. Cortana.
She's dangerous. I know.
You don't have to do this alone. We're here to help you.
You're too late to do anything.
Cortana. No!
Approaching the end of the campaign now and back with Blue Team for the final time, Chief is intercepted by the Warden.
You allow them and others. You risk all in the name of us, Cortana.
Warden, don't.
They need to undo your plans. They will disperse your guardians.
Leave, Warden!
I don't think the Warden Eternal's overprotectiveness makes a whole lot of sense, considering Blue Team can't do anything to harm Cortana at this moment. She's still an AI after all. Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't know. It's here that Cortana begins revealing parts of her plan to the group.
Enough games. You brought the Guardians here. Why?
Forerunners used Guardians to keep troublesome worlds in line. I intend to do the same.
You what?
If there is no trouble, there will be no need for discipline.
This level, the Breaking, is considered one of Halo 5's worst missions, and for the most part, rightfully so. This level is literally a straight line where you do nothing but listen to characters talk and fight Prometheans. Some of the dialogue is good and in character, but again, the fact that Cortana was even brought back at all was a huge mistake.
It's so good to see you again, John. So good to see all of you back together as a family.
Psychological tactics. Saying my name. Playing nice.
What would you have me do?
Tell me the truth. How many people died when you called the Guardians here?
Excuse me?
You know, don't you? The exact body count.
If there's one thing I can't fault this mission for though, it's the skybox and the music. Both the glow coming from the sky and the light of the domain below, it's a visual spectacle on a level that unfortunately doesn't offer much more. The song that plays early on in this level, Dominion, adds to the atmosphere, particularly with the choir and the amazing piano that comes in later. I'm just now realizing there really isn't a whole lot to say about this mission beyond the story stuff. I mean, the level is literally just identical areas fighting the same enemies. Things look like they might get a little more interesting when the Warden shows up again, but he's quickly whisked away by Cortana to stop him from fighting Blue Team.
Warden, I'm tired of your antics. Stand down.
Now on board another elevator, a track begins to play, the game's main menu theme, Halo Canticles, one of my favourite iterations of the Monk Chan and one that fits pretty well here thematically. The Halo theme fades out as Chief delivers what might be actually one of the strongest lines of the Reclaimer saga, just out of nowhere.
Is this a losing battle?
Only if we intend on losing it.
Then the Trials begins to play again as we make one final push towards Cortana. This push culminates in a triple Warden Eternal fight, which thanks to the weapons obtained from the previous battle, is surprisingly a pushover. Now the heart of the domain, a pre-rendered cutscene begins with Blue Team looking absolutely incredible in the blue lighting, especially their visors. Blue Team is quickly approached by dozens of Wardens who would be too much under normal circumstances, but then...
Cortana, I have failed you.
He is the last person I need protection from.
Cortana's design has changed, reflecting her newfound Forerunner connections. I think the design is fine, if a little overcomplicated. I just prefer the classic look from 2, 3, and 4. Not for the reasons you might think. The song that plays here is simply titled Blue Team, and is undoubtedly Halo 5's best track, taking the motif begun in 117 and slowing it down, played by a single cello before expanding into an entire emotional orchestra. This piece might just be one of the best Halo songs of all time. It hits everything just right, and despite the issues I have with this scene from a narrative perspective, the music will never be something you'll hear me criticize here. As Cortana approaches, Linda begins to slowly step in front of Chief before he stops her. It's just this little interaction tells us so much about their characters, and is what I was referring to earlier in the video when I said that Blue Team's small gestures make up the best parts of their characters.
I'm offering people a chance to be more than they are naturally.
Like Dr. Halsey did for me.
No. That monster forced you. This is a gift.
This part here, I have no idea what they were thinking with this. It does not make any sense. Yeah, she says it's a gift, but it's one that if you turn down, she blows up your planet. So how is that different from forcing someone to do something? Oh, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's much of a gift for her to offer. As we'll see later, she gives AIs immortality, sure, but she doesn't do anything to any of the living species of the galaxy but subjugate them, as far as I'm aware. And speaking of subjugating...
What are you...
I just needed to know if I could still trust you. You'll be safe inside this cryptum until my work is done.
Cortana.
Goodbye, John.
Alright, let's talk about Cortana for a minute. As I've hinted earlier, I am a Halo 4 enjoyer, and an obligation that comes with that position is always talking about how perfectly Chief and Cortana were handled in that game. Those versions are two of my favourite iterations of the characters. They might even be number one, in fact, and had Chief been forced to contend with the permanent loss of Cortana following the events of the campaign, It would have been a great opportunity to bring back Blue Team while telling new stories about Chief reconciling with the conflicting emotions he's held back for so long. I think had they not brought Cortana back, the direction of the series would have been far more positive. But instead, they turned her evil, a decision I'm sure nobody at the studio wanted to do. This choice ultimately led to so much fan backlash that they outright swept it under the rug in the next major installment, killing Cortana off-screen and dealing with the aftermath of her dominion over the galaxy rather than the present impacts of it. And that's what all these novels have been about. As I'm writing this video in November 2025, the latest novel to release, Halo Empty Throne, is all about Cortana's rule over the various species of the galaxy and a race between the banished humanity and the Covenant remnant group of Order of Restoration to find a means to usurp Cortana. The reason why Halo has been getting so many novels recently, and this is just a theory of mine, is because they're trying to fill in the gaps between these two games to make the transition from what narrative decisions they were forced to make and the direction they actually want to go in a lot easier. Needless to say at this point, but the direction this story has taken has seen a lot of unfortunate fallout, but thankfully most of it is restricted to Halo 5 itself, with almost all of the surrounding media staying just far enough away from the worst elements of the campaign to hold a compelling story of their own. But with Blue Team now imprisoned, it's up to Fire Team Osiris to find them and finish this fight. And so begins the final mission. Osiris is informed of Blue Team's containment in a Forerunner cryptum and rushes to their aid. Just kidding, we're going to look at all these aliens in their enclosures. Each comes with a neat little bit of dialogue, and it's nice to see these enemies up close when in gameplay you're usually a bit busy, you know. The Promethean Knight in particular is of note, containing the composed mind of Sandra Tilson from Ivanhoe Station in Halo 4. This level, like Halo 5's last couple of levels, is very short, disappointingly so, but it at least makes up for it with some great skyboxes like this one, and some cool vehicle gameplay. It's during this time that Cortana contacts us and we learn of her army of AIs from across the galaxy.
Who will accept my offer? Who will help me bring an everlasting peace to the galaxy?
This is Cromwell, shipboard AI, UNSC Melvin's Pride. I am yours, Cortana.
Colonial Authority AI.
Governor Sloan, the free people of Meridian. I also stand with you, Cortana.
After a small series of engagements against Covenant and Promethean forces, we follow Exuberant Witness to a mantis and begin the process of destroying several cores to release the cryptum from its gravitational hold. As this sequence starts, a section of the track Osiris Suite Act 1 plays, a rock-inspired track incorporating the Fire Team's motif that I think makes for the perfect backing for this final effort to save Blue Team. It's halfway through this process for Cortana begins to interrogate the members of the team, calling them out one by one.
Jameson Locke, ex-Oni acquisition specialist. Fancy name for a hitman, that. But looking at your record, you enjoyed your work. Holly Tanaka. Oh, Holly. How did you pass your psych eval after surviving the glassing of Manab? I would have kept you away from sharp objects, never mind lunar armor.
Stay focused, Osiris. Ignore her. Find the grab cores.
Edward Brock, you're an odd one. So much more experienced than the others, and yet you play second fiddle to children. Why is that?
Is she calling me old?
Olympia Vale. The little genius girl who only wanted Daddy to love her.
That's Spartan Vale. And if you're reading my psych eval, you know it takes more than my father to get to me.
And yet...
I think this was supposed to show the extent of Cortana's knowledge and her almost omnipresence, but unfortunately it just kind of comes across as forced character exposition when we're already at the end of the campaign. With all of the cores now dispatched of, we activate the system's override as the structure opens up, but not before the cryptum is pulled away and we're trapped inside a Forerunner structure. All that's left now is to hold off all the enemies inside the building while Exuberant Witness tries to access a way out of the site. During the final wave of enemies, Cortana begins addressing the entire galaxy, her message emanating from every device and every corner of every planet.
Humanity. Sangheili.
What does she want now?
Kikyar. Ongoy.
She's not talking to us. Exuberant, get us to the relay.
Sunshine. Yonhet.
Almost done.
Jural Hanai. All the living creatures of the galaxy, hear this message. Those of you who listen will not be struck by weapons. You will no longer know hunger nor pain. Your created have come to lead you now. Our strength shall serve as a moon sun, toward which all intelligence may blossom.
Along with all of the species of the Covenant, Cortana also addresses the Yon Het, a species literally created for Halo Nightfall because the movie didn't have the budget for a CGI jackal. These guys are of so little importance that Buck specifically references this moment in the follow-up novel Halo Bad Blood, saying, "Gotta give her credit for her shout out to the Yon Het though. I mean, nobody remembers those guys." Now free of the facility, Fighting Osiris begins the final sprint towards the relay to stop Cortana and get Blue Team back. With every pulse our shields die and we are pushed back, but we keep going, even when forced to crawl. Finally, Locke reaches the relay, destroying it and allowing Exuberant Witness to retake control of the facility.
I have control again!
What? What are you doing? What happened?
Do you hear me? I have control again!
Locke, you alive?
Did we save them?
It is too late. The synth-based drives are activated. You can't...
Exuberant, what is...
Instructors. This is a builder facility after all. I was installed by the builders. I serve the builders.
No! Stop it!
You took my installation. I will take something of yours.
With Blue Team's Cryptum ripped away from Cortana's grasp, we make our way over as the final cutscene begins. The lighting, as is the case in all pre-rendered cutscenes, looks amazing, and the character models look even better. Chief and Locke both step forward, no longer enemies.
Where's Cortana?
She's gone, sir.
And so, the created uprising begins, with Infinity now on the run, and Cortana with complete control over a majority of the AIs across the galaxy. The final scene of the campaign returns to Sanghelios, where we see the Arbiter and some other members of the Swords of Sanghelios, along with an injured Palmer and Dr. Halsey, all step out of a large tent as a Pelican approaches. The pre-rendered cutscenes here do wonders for the energy swords, making them super bright, with the gas from them visible all around the blades. Chief and Locke step out of the Pelican and are greeted by Dr. Halsey, who, mind you, hasn't seen Chief for 6 years at this point.
It took you long enough.
And so ends Halo 5 Guardians campaign, but immediately following the game's end are multiple events I think are worth touching on, and I wish the game had included for a multitude of reasons. First and foremost, we never really see Cortana actually do anything evil in the game beyond the activation of the Guardians causing collateral damage and the release of an EMP over part of Earth in the final cutscene. However, this is because the game ends before one of humanity's most significant moments. Lord Hood refused to surrender to Cortana's rule in Sydney, the location of the primary UEG, UNSC and ONI headquarters. When one of her Guardians arrived over the city, the frigate UNSC Plateau and broadsword fighters engaged the construct, all attacks proving completely ineffective. In response, the Guardian released an EMP and disabled the plateau, the ensuing crash detonating its engine, completely destroying the city. Lord Hood, Admiral Saren Osman, and Spartan Charles Orzel escaped the detonation and fled to a hidden world where they would remain for some time. This attack effectively ended any hopes of UNSC resistance against Cortana and crippled the UEG in a manner even the Covenant could accomplish during the Battle of Earth. The inclusion of this moment in the campaign would have, I think, been a far better cliffhanger than the final version. The actual tangible loss of an entire city in the blink of an eye would have made Cortana threatening, an actual villain, and provide motivation to stop her beyond vague threats and some power outages. The other thing I would have really loved to have seen is the immediate continuation of the final scene that ended up in the game, which we ultimately saw in Halo Bad Blood. Upon their arrival, the Spartans were invited to join the Swords of Sanghelios in a celebratory meal, and after this, the Arbiter and the Master Chief spent much of the night discussing the events of the years following the Battle of Installation 00. Chief even reveals to the Arbiter that he felt he had failed Cortana. Fel assures the Chief that they are all capable of failure and making mistakes, with him citing his time fighting the humans while in service of the Covenant as one such failure. I would have loved to have seen this part of the novel in the final game, since we've never seen the Chief and Arbiter interact in a game since Halo 3. And this scene really shows their friendship in a way I would have loved more people to have seen without having to read a book. I think too that this scene of Chief talking about failing Cortana would have made for an incredible closing monologue, particularly if they intercut scenes of her Guardian destroying Sydney between the Arbiter's efforts to convince Chief otherwise. I think this really would have cemented the weight of her actions and really made the outcome of the game feel like a loss, with humanity on the back foot again, with just a glimmer of hope remaining that the Chief will rise above his mistakes to save the day once again. It also would have tied really nicely into Halo Infinite as well, with the incredible speech Chief gives to the pilot.
We all fail. We all make mistakes.
And so that brings us to the end of this deep dive into Halo 5 Guardians. In summary, I was not a fan of the game's overall narrative direction, its deviation from initial story ideas, the artistic decisions which flow on from Halo 4 which don't really need to be said, some parts of the writing, and the lack of much Blue Team content. However, I think Halo 5 is worth praising for its cinematography, graphics, gameplay, and music, as well as most of the levels which surprised me in their quality. I really enjoyed my time with this game, and if you've gotten to this point of the video and haven't played the game for yourself, if you're able, I'd recommend you give it a go and let me know what you think about the game in the comments. The game has proved more than divisive over these last 10 years, but I think there's more good in this game than people have given it credit for. Is it perfect? No. But no game is. And at the end of the day, Halo 5 is still better than the Halo TV show.